Immigration is an extremely relevant topic in today's news. Newly elected President Donald Trump has openly stated his views on immigration. But what about the rest of America? Tonight on 15 Minutes, we'll discuss the impacts of immigration on the economy, the benefits, the concerns, and how it really affects the financial system. I'm Shannon Nichols.
I'm Alexi Arias.
I'm Andrew Lutz.
And I'm Margot Durham.
And this is 15 Minutes.
If it weren't for me, you wouldn't even be talking about illegal immigration.
I will build the greatest wall that you've ever seen. 3,000 years ago, right? The Great Wall of China was built. We'd like to have that wall. That wall, nobody gets through. That I can tell you.
We have at least 11 million people in this country that came in illegally. They will go out. They will come back. Some will come back, the best, through a process. They have to come back legally. They have to come back through a process, and it may not be a very quick process, but I think that's very fair and very fine.
What we are going to do is get the people that are criminal and have criminal records, gang members, drug dealers. We have a lot of these people, probably 2 million, it could even be 3 million. We're getting them out of our country or we're going to incarcerate.
The president wanting to keep the focus on his 2018 agenda.
We will be demonstrating that we are very, very serious.
Top of the list, DACA, border security and immigration reform. President Trump blasting Democrats for, quote, doing nothing about DACA. Revealing his offer of a path to citizenship for 1.8 million Dreamers was a test for Democrats.
It is no secret that the threat of deportation has become a daily concern for immigrants since the election of President Donald Trump. But why is Trump so against immigration? According to Homeland Security, in 2016, there were more than 1 million new lawful permanent residents. A lawful permanent resident, or LPR, is also known as a green card recipient. It is a person who has been granted lawful permanent residence in the United States. They may live and work permanently in the U.S., own property, attend public schools, colleges, universities, join the U.S. Armed Forces, and apply to become a U.S. citizen after meeting certain eligibility requirements. These new LPRs come from all over. Most come because of immediate relatives that are U.S. citizens, and also because of employment-based preferences. It is estimated that 8.1 million undocumented immigrants are working or looking for work in the United States. Out of the 158.8 million that make up the total workforce, undocumented immigrants only make up about 5%. However, for specific jobs like farming, cleaning, maintenance, and construction, undocumented workers make up extremely large percentages. This is because they are more likely to do jobs that don't necessarily require fluency in English or a high school diploma. Going off this, 47% of illegal immigrants have less than a high school education, while only 8% U.S.-born citizens have not graduated from high school.
Every apple in the United States is hand harvested. There are no machines for this. So we depend on migrant labor, on skilled migrant labor to come in and do this. We have had, over the years, dozens of American, domestic American citizens show up and say, yeah, I'd like to pick apples. Most of them don't make it through a day. I would advise the president to continue the path to securing the border because we have to have a secure national border. I think it does mean building a wall, but it has to be a wall with, as he said during his campaign, I think it was a big, beautiful door in it. We need immigrant workers to come into this country for a variety of skills and positions, and we allow them to come in and to fill jobs that we have here.
Trump's policies target young immigrants brought into the United States as children, people from temporarily protected countries, and travelers from a half-dozen Muslim-majority nations. Trump's decisions to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, also known as the DACA program, will affect close to 690,000 young immigrants nationally. Trump's administration is also scaling back the Temporary Protected Status program that is offered to citizens of countries where it is unsafe to return home because of natural disasters and civil war.
Effective immediately, the Department of Homeland Security is taking steps to lift the shadow of deportation from these young people.
If you come to the U.S. when you were under 16, if you were either in high school or had a high school diploma, and if you had either no criminal record or like a teeny tiny misdemeanor,
then you could apply for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program.
basically a permit that protects you from getting deported and allows you to work legally in the U.S. But now, that protection is gone.
I'm here today to announce that the program known as DACA that was effectuated under the Obama administration is being rescinded.
DACA was designed to protect a generation of young undocumented immigrants known as Dreamers, named after a bill called the DREAM Act, which had been floating around Congress for more than a decade, and with bipartisan support. The bill would have given unauthorized immigrants who grew up in the U.S. a way to gain legal status and eventually apply for citizenship. In the 5 years it's been around, DACA has had a big impact on young undocumented immigrants. A survey of DACA recipients found nearly 70% got a job with better pay. More than 60% opened their first bank account. Nearly 65% bought their first car, and a similar share say that they've pursued educational opportunities they previously couldn't.
Though we discussed all immigrants who entered the U.S. legally through the Green Card program, there is also a significant amount of undocumented immigrants enter as well. A source estimates illegal immigrants cost the government $100 billion a year. Most illegal immigrants get paid under the table to avoid income tax. This being said, immigrants actually end up paying more than $11 billion a year in sales, property, and income taxes. Undocumented immigrants have individual taxpaying identification number, also known as the ITN. They feed into the system that way. In addition, if the U.S. legalized all the immigration statuses, the additional tax they would pay would be $2 billion. This money could go towards roads, schools, and other services. While our main focus is immigrants coming into the country, it is also important to look at how many are deported and for what reasons. In 2016, over 300,000 aliens were removed from the U.S. 40% of these aliens removed were criminal. Now, looking at the number of immigrants in the U.S., both documented and undocumented, what are the economical impacts of having all these people in the U.S. workforce?
California itself has a GDP worth $2.5 trillion, which is the largest economy in the U.S. and the 6th largest in the world. It also is the state with the most immigrants, both documented and undocumented. Betty Yee, California's state controller, said undocumented immigrant labor is worth more than $180 billion a year to California's economy. This contribution is equal to the entire state of Oklahoma's GDP in 2015. Undocumented immigrants make up an estimated 10% of the California workforce. However, the work they do is often at the bottom end of the wage scale. What would happen to the state's economy, and the entire country for that matter, if all those workers were deported?
To get an idea on Americans' opinions on the issue of immigration, we took a tour around St. Joseph's University's campus and talked to students to hear their opinions on the topic.
I think it's important to get diversity in our country.
The immigration process can be a little bit confusing.
Immigration is great for our country, and however, I think illegal immigration is something that needs to be restricted and needs to be put a tougher security on it.
If it goes through our legal process of the country, then I think it could overall be a good thing.
I think definitely immigrants help the economy.
Well, I don't know much about it, but I would have to say that it must benefit the economy in ways where you get like more people in the workforce and like a diverse amount of minds and ideas.
Immigration definitely impacts our economy in the right way. It definitely brings more jobs to immigrants and is our.
But it harms it if it's people that come in illegally and then like you don't know like where they're coming from or like there's no documentation.
Overall, immigration helps the economy because it's more people entering the workforce, which will then drive up profits and the overall GDP for our country.
It could be bad if there's like more people coming in illegally that are taking jobs from legal immigrants.
Unfortunately, they might get mixed up in a weird process with visas, work visas, whatever.
I know a lot of people argue that immigrants take jobs that Americans could have, but I would argue that immigrants actually help the workforce because they add more labor into our workforce and they're actually taking jobs that Americans don't want to have.
It doesn't hurt Americans getting jobs as immigrants oftentimes take jobs that most Americans would not do.
So I think if all immigrants were deported, it would heavily hurt the U.S. economy and the workforce because if they were all leaving, it would be in industries where Americans wouldn't want to work in and it would be huge vacancies, which then drive down profits and overall economic GDP.
So I think it would open up a lot of jobs for native-born Americans, but then also it's like I'm kind of stuck because they kind of take the jobs that we don't always want to do, so then there'd be like way too many jobs open.
Now that we found out how the citizens feel about immigration, it's time we turn to our government leaders and hear their stance. Here are clips of a recent debate highlighting their views on immigration.
What is your opinion on having undocumented workers occupying the workforce and unskilled labor? Senator Arias, you'll start.
The issue with having undocumented workers out in the workforce is the injustices that they receive. They're victim to low pay, long hours, and brutal conditions because it is all under the table and not regulated. The people contribute to our national GDP and are crucial to sustaining industries like farming, and we fail to treat them like human beings.
If they aren't treated like human beings, then why do they still work these jobs?
Senator Lutz, please give Ms. Arias her time. Ms. Arias, continue.
With an ideal unemployment rate of 4 to 6%, we are currently at 4.1%. Because the immigrants work undesirable jobs, higher educated native-born Americans don't have to. Immigration is helping the U.S. avoid underemployment.
Having undocumented immigrants in the workforce in general is bad for the U.S. government and the taxpayers. These undocumented workers get paid under the table and avoid taxes that they should have to pay. These taxes could be going to our education and our national debt. Therefore, I'll work on getting rid of these parasites and give their jobs to tax-paying Americans.
What would your immigration policy be to maximize economic growth in America? Senator Lutz?
Well, it is clear that immigration is good for economic growth. However, there are two types of immigration, legal and illegal. Legal and documented immigration is what makes this country great. Illegal immigration will be the downfall of this economy. It's been made known that illegal immigrants can cost the U.S. government $100 billion every year. My policy will ensure a safe border for immigrants to legally enter the United States while simultaneously getting rid of the immigrants who are freeloading the taxpayers of this country.
My immigration policy would be to keep people who are making wages, no matter what the wage in America, to continue to stimulate the economy. Those who are here illegally, I would require them to obtain a green card, but they can continue to work while going through the process. And I would work with making the process a lot easier. Immigrants bring $1.6 trillion to the economy each year. So it makes sense to keep those workers around in order to keep stimulating the economy. These illegal immigrants are not freeloading off the taxpayers. They are simply just working the jobs that the average American does not want to.
What are your thoughts on Trump's immigration policy?
Trump plans to build a border wall at the Mexican border. He also has recently signed an executive order asking Homeland Security to review the H-1B program. He basically only wants to protect immigrants that are highly skilled and highly paid. As previously stated, immigrants add $1.6 trillion to the economy each year. So regardless of wage, all immigrants are bringing in money, which stimulates the economy. I think that Trump is going about his immigration policies the wrong way.
President Trump signed 2 executive orders tightening border security and cracking down on sanctuary cities. These orders combined to the arresting of 41,300 undocumented illegal immigrants. This represents a 38% increase in immigration arrests. This is the type of results I expect from policies by Trump, and I hope he continues these types of policies.
This past week, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee gave Trump's response to the ruling on DACA. Here's what she had to say.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. I wanted to get your reaction to the ruling that came down from a federal district court judge here in Washington concerning DACA. He said that the president's decision to end DACA was arbitrary and capricious. What's your reaction to this ruling, the third federal judge to rule against the president on DACA?
The DACA program violates federal law. President Obama went around Congress and created the illegal DACA program. We believe the judge's ruling is extraordinarily broad and wrong on the law. What's worse is that it creates an incentive for more illegal immigrant youth to come here and causes them to expect similar judicial policies be applied to them. This ruling is good news for smuggling organizations and criminal networks and horrible news for our national security. It's time for Congress to do what the president has called on them to do and offered to be part of and actually fix this problem.
The United States is a country founded by immigrants and has continuously benefited from these immigrants. Although illegal immigration can negatively affect our economy, immigration as a whole increases the overall economic activity in the United States. Through increased overall economic activity, positive long-run fiscal effects and increased net incomes of native-born Americans are likely to occur. Thank you for staying for 15 minutes. I'm Andrew Lutz.